Hello, everybody, and welcome. I guess you could kind of call this a bonus edition, special edition of Spilling the Tea in Studio D. And again, I know some of you young guys, I see you kind of laughing at spilling the tea. Yeah, we're late, to the conversation on that, but that's really was kind of the purpose of that. Us old people kind of catching up on, trying to be hip, I guess. But really, T for us stands for teachers, educators, administrators, but we really left the A on the end to open up for anything. So, but we're happy to have this morning David Salley, Assistant AD, and as you said earlier, SID, the Sports Information Director at Henderson State University. Big weekend coming up. Battle of the Ravine. So
yeah, it's a huge weekend. I mean, it doesn't get any bigger than this for us. I was just joking with one of your guys outside, and we like to say around our offices that this is the 1 week a year where we kind of step back and say, like, wow, this is what, like, the big schools, like the real big schools must feel like every week, just the media requests and everything going on. This is our chance to kind of, have that experience, and it just doesn't get any bigger.
Right. So tell us a little bit about you before we get too far down the road. Now, you a GA at Henderson or?
So I started as a GA in 2016. I'm actually originally from Charleston, South Carolina. Okay. So I made my way out here. I went to Harding University for undergrad. I always tell people, don't hold that against me here in this town. But right. I went to Harding, and then I came to Henderson State as a graduate assistant in the fall of 16. I was a GA for 2 years, and then I've been a full-time employee since 18. So this is my, 6th year here. Wow. It's gone by fast. And so I've gotten to see, I think, 5 Battle of the Ravines now. And it's been great being out here. I love the town. I love Henderson State. So it's been a really good experience for me.
So, with the media requests, I think, a lot of folks from the state of Arkansas, they honestly don't really get how massive this thing is from the standpoint of national attention. You guys get a media request, I'm sure, from all over the country.
We do. I say last year, 2 years ago. I'm still getting used to saying that, but 2 years ago, we had Sports Illustrated out here for this thing. They contacted us in July, and they were like, hey, we want to come out. We want to do a story, and obviously, we're always trying to hype this thing up as much as we possibly can, try to get the word out, because like you said, in Arkansas, it's such a big deal. But I mean, just me, for example, being from South Carolina, I didn't know anything about it until I came out here. But Sports Illustrated came out here for the whole week. They did an 8-page spread in Sports Illustrated 2 years ago. So it was awesome. And I think that's just a microcosm of, this is a really big deal. So it's awesome.
And one of the things I think that's really cool about it is, both schools recruit in-state heavily. So a lot of these guys they've played against each other since junior high school, and then they roll in here and they just literally walk across the street on game day. And it's just, as they like to say, a big old slobber knocker on Saturday, and man, they get after it.
All you got to do is look at both rosters for the two teams, and you can Arkansas, and right. Tons of crossover from schools. There's guys who are high school teammates playing against each other, and I think that is one of the things that just makes it so unique, being so close, not just here in this town, but so many kids from Arkansas playing this game. It's really a cool thing for the state.
And this year it's on OBU's campus, 1 o'clock kickoff, right?
Yes, 1 o'clock kickoff over there at Cliff Harris Stadium.
Okay, so, you talk about Sports Illustrated. I know for years they say there's been a push to get like game day, that kind of stuff out here. Any truth to that rumor?
Everyone wants it to be here, and I'm one of those people as well. Back in 2019, every year it feels like the Battle of the Ravine, it's the biggest it's ever been, right? I felt like in 2019 we were talking about how this could be the biggest Battle of the Ravine ever. Both teams had a chance to win the conference title in that game, and the series was tied all time going into that game. And so actually, I've never told this story before to a lot of people, but I reached out. I used some of the contacts we had from our conference, and I reached out to a producer for College Game Day and basically wrote like this novel about Battle of the Ravine and was like, hey man, like, I know y'all got stuff going on. The hard thing is it's always at the end of the year. And so, for College Game Day, it's towards the end of the year too for the big D1 schools. Sure. And so there's always some big game going on. But we actually sort of had a chance that weekend 2 years ago. And so I just was like, hey, you've never even been to a D2 school. You've been to a D3 school. You've been to FCS. Obviously, you've been to D1. Like, you guys got to come out here for this. Like, I just want to put this on your radar. And he actually did respond, and he was like, hey, I'm going to, like, make sure the right people see this. And he said, in quotes, he was like, that's half the battle.
Wow.
But I never heard back. And
persevere, keep trying.
I really think, I really feel like if we're ever going to get it, it's going to be for that 100th Battle of the Ravine. And that's
Right.
coming up here in the next decade. You know, this is the 94th one. So
Wow.
I really feel like if it's going to happen, we kind of need to make like a couple years out push and just put it on their radar and just
Right.
keep putting it on their radar. So
Good plan.
I'm going to keep trying. I'm going to do my part, but I think we need to get like a town push. And I really do think it could happen. I truly believe that.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen it mentioned. I'll say that on the national level, a couple different places. You know, you'll get a mention, and they'll talk about, you know, hey, this is one of the coolest rivalries in the country from the standpoint of, you know, these two teams. You know, just the mere fact that we have two universities that literally are divided by a highway, and then they walk across the highway to strap it up and play football. So, I mean, there's no doubt that it's garnering more and more attention as time goes on. So I think, you know, from my perspective, I think you're right. You know, getting it out there early as you close in on that 100, that would obviously be the time to do that. So tell us a little bit about as far as being the SID and prepping for this weekend. I know you just don't wake up the week of and say, okay, we're ready to go. So what's that look like for you?
You know, I mean, I think if you live in this town and you work at one of these two schools, it's always sort of in the back of your mind all year long. You know, people wake up in this town every day, and I think people think about Battle of the Ravine no matter what time of the year it is. And so there's always that little thing in the back of your mind saying, hey, Battle of the Ravine's coming up. You know, we do our best to kind of take it week at a time, at least with the team, you know, try to take it one game and not look ahead. It's hard because it's such a big deal. From my perspective, you know, I mean, it's the media request is the biggest thing. You know, we'll get people reaching out early in the year because they want to make sure. We got people reaching out for tickets for this game, and it's like, hey, it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to get tickets, you know. So, I mean, from my perspective, the biggest thing for me is that just the media request. It's so much bigger in this game, and a lot of it does come this week, just to be honest with you, you know, but it's definitely special, special compared to the rest of the year.
This community is it is amazing. You know, Darren and I are former Reddies.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Go Reddies.
That's right.
Go Reddies, huh?
Yeah, and a lot going on over at Henderson. I know, you know, coming up, I guess next week, the new chancellor's he's gonna be starting the 15th, right?
Yeah, I believe so. He actually, you know, I've heard a rumor that he's gonna drive through the night to get here on Saturday. So I think he plans to be there.
Awesome.
Dr. Ambrose, I think he's gonna be there on Saturday. So that'll be quite an indoctrination into Henderson State, Ouachita, the rivalry. Your first day in Arkadelphia, or at least your first maybe official day, is going to be Battle of the Ravine. So that's going to be pretty interesting.
Well, you know, I kind of freaked out when I came in on Monday. I was driving in. I live in Jesseville, so I mean, I make the trek, you know, in every morning. And I drove in on Monday, and I was like, man, did we get the wrong week? There's no plastic on anything. And one of my employees came in and said, oh no, it's going on. Said, you know, OBU had lights on, and probably, you know, by the afternoon drive in, I mean, everything was all covered up.
You know, I think the plastic, that's one of those things that really helps people visualize, like explain to people how big this is. Because when people see that, they're like, what's going on? I've got a GA, I've got a couple of little student assistants who, you know, they weren't here in 2019 and we didn't play last year. And so they kind of are getting to see everything for the first time. And I've been telling them, like, hey, stuff's going to be wrapped up. You know, you guys don't really even understand how big this is. Because I know I didn't. When I was in their situation, people talk about Battle of the Ravine, and I was like, all right, yeah, cool, rivalry game. But then you see they're literally wrapping every sign in this town, and it's kind of make you take a step back. And that's a good way to show people, like, this, we mean business when it comes to this rivalry.
And you know, I guess I've never asked this question before, but I guess there's actually a trophy that travels, right, with the winner. I think so.
Yeah, I think there is. You know, I've seen pictures of the trophy. It's got, like, the Ouachita helmet and the Henderson helmet. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if they still do that. They very well may. I don't know if it trades hands every year or what, but I've seen pictures of it from previous Battle of the Ravines.
Well, and you know, it's funny that, of course, we work with both schools. I mean, you know, being in the education business, but we actually have a room across the street. It's a meeting room. It's called the Ravine Room. So one wall, all Henderson, one room, all OBU. So, and it's kind of a neat room in that when you walk in there, we've got, you know, some academia pictures, then we have some athletic pictures on the other wall. So, you know, everybody. That's the thing too. I think that a lot of people, you know, don't really understand about Arkadelphia. I mean, the town itself, I mean, that's just something that the town looks forward to every year is the Battle of the Ravine. I mean, if you grew up in Arkadelphia, I mean, this is one of those go-to functions.
It's the Super Bowl
for
anybody in Arkadelphia,
right.
and this area of the state of Arkansas. And you're right, it is one of the things that just makes Arkadelphia such a special place. Like I said, not from here when I first got here. That's one of the things you kind of see is it's split straight down the middle. You're either Henderson or Ouachita. And I say you can't be both, but there's a lot of crossover. People have degrees from both schools. And so, it's just a really interesting town and a really interesting dynamic. And one of the things that we talked about when Sports Illustrated came down here is, it's like on Saturday, we're rivals and we want to beat each other. But that next day, you're sitting next to a Ouachita person in church or a Henderson person in church, and you're intermingling. So there's this civility to the rivalry because you live together. These are literally your neighbors. So, it makes it really cool.
I didn't realize it was 90, would you say 94?
This is the 94th Battle of the Ravine.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's one of the longest. I think it might be the longest rivalry in all of D2 football.
Right.
So it's been going on for a really long time.
That's pretty cool.
So talk a little bit about the head coach. He's been at Henderson how long now?
So this is Coach Maxfield's 17th year, 16th season, because we didn't play last year. But he's been at Henderson for 17 years. He's got 117 wins now. So he's actually 2 away from tying Sporty Carpenter.
Oh, wow.
For most wins at Henderson, which
–
I know a lot of people in this area are familiar with Coach Carpenter. Obviously, the stadium, half the stadium's named after him. He's a legend, and Coach Max is 2 wins away now from tying Sporty. So theoretically, if we could win on Saturday and then potentially win a playoff game, he'd tie Sporty this season. And if he doesn't get it this year, I would imagine he'll probably get it next year. So he's had a heck of a career at Henderson, and he's done an absolutely incredible job this year with that team.
Right. So, and I guess OBU similar, I think, records right now, pretty close, right?
Yeah. So we're 9-1. They're 8-2. We were both 8-1 last week. So last weekend they lost to Southeastern Oklahoma, which I think was their first home loss in like 5 years. So they've been really, really good. And we had a really dramatic come from behind win at Oklahoma Baptist. I don't know if anybody saw it, but we had our kicker hit a 43-yard field goal into the wind as time expired out there in Oklahoma, and set off a pretty wild celebration. It was awesome. Yeah. It was really fun, and it was the perfect send off into this week because it gives you a lot of energy and momentum, and it was really cool. But yeah, very similar records. There's always a lot on the line in this game.
And as far as, it's not like, is necessarily the D1 type playoff situation. So explain that a little bit, how you do get to the playoffs.
So there's 4 super regions, and each super region takes 7 teams. So seeded 1 through 7, the number 1 seed in each region is going to get a bye. So you want to be in that top 7, and every week for 3 weeks. So from week 8 to week 10, they do the regional rankings that come out from the NCAA. And they'll rank them 1 through 10, but only the top 7 make it. So it's kind of like you're jockeying to see where you're going to be. And right now we're 6th. Ouachita's 10th after they lost last week, but they're still in them. So Harding in our league is 2, and I think Southeastern Oklahoma might be 8. So we've still got in our league 4 teams that theoretically have a chance to make it. And basically the way it works is that number 1 seed will get a bye, 2 will play 7. And then 3, 6, 4, 5, all the way down the line, and the 2 through 4 seeds will host first round games.
Right.
Awesome.
So who's sitting at number 1 right now?
So number 1 in our region right now is Ferris State. They're up in Michigan, and they're really, really good. They're probably going to be the number 1 seed. So I'm guessing they'll probably get that bye. And then after that, it's really a toss up. It's hard to say because so much can happen this last weekend. We've seen it happen before. Things get shifted. Battle of the Ravine always is the last week of the season, and that can change things for the entire region. So it's very up in the air, but I feel pretty comfortable saying, if the Rays can get it done on Saturday, they're going to be in the playoffs. I don't know if they'll be hosting a playoff game, but I think they'll definitely be in.
Okay, so and you guys play in the American
we play in the Great American Conference. So Great American Conference, we've got 6 schools, 62 schools in Arkansas and 6 in Oklahoma. So the 6 Arkansas schools, for our folks who are familiar with this, are the schools who used to be in the AIC, which was the Arkansas Intercollegiate Conference. So that's us and Ouachita, UAM, Arkansas Tech, Harding, and Southern Arkansas. Then we've got 6 schools in Oklahoma. So there's 6 in Arkansas, 6 in Oklahoma. We don't actually have divisions, but it's a good combination of teams. It's just those two states. So the league's only 10 years old. It started in 2011, but it's really come a long way. And the top end of our league, I really feel like, is as good as any league in this area. And the best teams in our league can compete at a national level for sure.
Wow. And you know, from an old guy like me, I'll be 55. I
Yeah,
guess,
he's old enough to be your dad.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Probably grandpa at
He
this
did.
point.
He did. Hey, he did shave. I told him. I
Yeah.
said, "You just trying to look younger for
No,
the podcast."
I
aren't
told you what that was. I was trimming it up and got preoccupied.
Hey, you look good.
A
Yeah.
big gaping
I told
hole
him,
in there.
I told him it works. He does look a lot
So,
younger.
but anyway, working with an office full of women, the things they notice, you know what I'm saying? So, but to my point, it's been interesting watching, you know, the Great American develop, because I can remember AIC, you know, coming up and just watching the different teams dominate through the years and watch that stuff turn over. It's been pretty, I guess what you would say, that different team rise to the top in different decades, that kind of stuff, and establish, you know, that dominance throughout the decades. It's been pretty cool to watch some of that because, you know, I remember back in the day, Henderson, OBU considered smaller schools, but man, the last, I don't know, 2-3 decades, they've been right there, right in the mix. So that's been pretty cool, you know, and then to expand to those schools in Oklahoma and be able to compete with those schools. I really think that the Arkansas schools, it's been good for Oklahoma. Because, I mean, they used to just wear, I mean, those schools just used to be, I mean, they used to just wear those schools out, but they've gotten competitive.
Well, you know, I really think the Great American Conference is a great fit for us, and Ouachita as well. We've had, at Henderson, I can only speak for us, but we've had a great experience with the conference. And, you know, it's interesting, since the league was founded in 2011, there's only 3 schools that have ever won a football championship, and it's Henderson, Ouachita, and Harding.
Wow.
And of those
Wow.
championships, Henderson and Ouachita have 8 of them.
Wow.
So Harding won 1 in 2016, and the other 8 have been won by either Ouachita or Henderson. Right. So, and it's going to stay that way this year as well, I think, no matter what happens. So, it speaks to how good those 2 programs have been in our league. That the conference title and the JC in football, it runs through Arkadelphia one way or another.
Yeah, well, and I know you guys do a great job of recruiting in-state. I know some of the, you know, in the past, I think, you know, you struggle to get some of those in-state kids, but now I think with the success that you've had, talk about that a little bit. It's probably made it a little bit easier to keep the homeboys at home. So
sure, there's a lot of people who, you know, in the past decade, especially Henderson State, you think about Henderson State and you think about really good football. I mean, we've had a lot of success, and that's a credit to Coach Maxfield and his staff and a lot of really good players who have come in through here. And so I think it does help them to be able to go into kids' homes and say, hey, look at what we did here. Look at our record in the past decade. You know, we put people in the seats. Look at the Battle of the Ravine. I know that the Battle of the Ravine itself can be a selling point for some of these recruits on both sides of the street, just because, I mean, if you've ever experienced that game in person, I mean, that can convince you to come to a school for sure. So definitely we've had a lot of success, and that's a credit to our coaching staff and some good players that have come through here. But that certainly helps them go into homes and convince kids to come be readies.
Okay, so, well, obviously, we're not going to let you get out of here with predicting a score. So, high score, low score, what do you think?
Oh, man, it's so hard to say. You know, Ouachita, we have so much respect for them. It's hard not to, from what they've done the last several years. I mean, they're the 3-time defending conference champions. I mean, they lost last week at home, you know, for the first time since 2017 in regular season. So, you know, but at the same time, I think we've got a good team. We've got a good group of guys. We have older guys, as I'm sure a lot of teams do, and I think that's given us a good kind of calm demeanor. We've been behind at times this season. We came from behind last week. We were actually down 28-0 earlier this season to Southern Arkansas. Came back and won.
Wow.
So, you know, I like the demeanor of our team a lot, and as far as the game itself goes, it's so hard to say. The styles are so different because Ouachita, you know, they're going to run the ball. They do it incredibly well. They keep it on the ground most of the time, and we like to air it out. We're pretty balanced as well. We can run it, but we certainly have some guys that give us the ability to put the ball in the air. So, I think if it's a high-scoring game, honestly, that probably favors Henderson, and if it's a lower-scoring game, that probably favors Ouachita. Just to be honest with you,
Should be a nail biter then.
it's gonna. That's the one thing you can bet on for sure. It's always close, and I know better than to pick a score in this game. I know better than to think I know what's going to happen in this game because I've seen it enough to know that it could go either way.
Yeah.
David sounds like he's going to be in future in politics. Speaking of that, what are your future plans?
Well, I really like what I'm doing right now. I love being at Henderson. They've been super good to me, and I love being a Ready. I love working in sports. Ever since I was a kid, sports has been kind of my passion, and so I love getting to come to work every day and just work with our coaches and student athletes and represent Henderson and get to go to games and get paid to do that. I think that's awesome that, I found a job that lets me do that. I guess at some point I might like to be an AD. I think my dad's my high school AD back in Charleston, and I get to work really closely with our AD, Sean Jones, who does an unbelievable job at Henderson State. So, maybe somewhere down the line that could be in my future, but I'm just trying to take it one step at a time and do what I'm doing right now.
I bet that was fun, your dad being your AD.
So he was my high school track coach my senior year. He was a coach and a teacher before he became the AD, and he actually didn't become the AD until I graduated. And so, but he coached me for one season. I didn't want my dad to coach me for the longest time, but then my senior year, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go out and do it. And we had a great experience. We actually won the state title that year. So it's a fun memory looking back, but he does a good job down there.
I was my daughter's 8th grade principal, and she hated everything.
Yeah.
I could imagine that. I can imagine that.
Yeah, and I served as superintendent with my son for 5 years. So yeah.
Oh yeah, our poor kids.
Yeah, exactly. But honestly, love of what you're doing, that passion. That's over half the battle.
Definitely.
Just waking up and it not feeling like work is certainly something that that I've been blessed with my entire career. I was in radio before I did this, and then. That's the old saying, tell God your plans and he'll laugh and say, okay. And that's basically what happened. I mean, he allowed me to do that, blessed me with that opportunity. And then he said, okay, now this is what I want you to do. So, but honestly, I've never, ever felt like that I've had, never had a job that I didn't want to go to, I guess.
Neither.
No, yeah, I tell my wife that all the time. I think I'm very blessed to be able to say that truly, I feel this way, even on our worst days when I'm just swamped and there's so much stuff going on. At the end of the day, I never, ever once have come in there and been like, man, I can't stand this. I love my job every day. And so that's definitely a blessing. And like you said, you just laugh sometimes because a kid from Charleston, South Carolina, if you told me I'd be in Arkadelphia, Arkansas for 6 years doing this and just be so invested in it, that would have been wild to hear as a kid. So it's fun.
Exactly.
Like Darren said, God's got his plans.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Well, David, we appreciate you coming in, and good luck to the Reddies this weekend. And, who knows, we may call you back one of these days, come back down here. And if we can ever help you guys out, let us know.
Yes.
And again, it's going to be at Cliff Harris Stadium, 1 o'clock kickoff.
Cliff Harris Stadium, Saturday, 1 o'clock. Henderson State will be walking around 11:30. So if you're into that, if you want to see them walk across the street, I'm very into that. I think that's so cool. So if you want to see them walk, that's at 11:30. But the game itself, 1 o'clock Saturday, Cliff Harris Stadium.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for having me.
Appreciate
Thanks for coming.
And again, that wraps it up for the Henderson side of our special Battle of the Ravine, Spilling the Tea in Studio D.